Welcome into the latest edition of the Unpaid Interns. It is Friday, June 19th. Happy Juneteenth to everybody out there. Griffin Gonzalez is joining me here side by side. Griffin, how are you?
Austin, can't complain. It's going to be a good day. It's Friday. We
finally got you back on here, which I think we've had some clamoring for Griffin Gonzalez in the chat. People really want to see you. So you're finally back. We start off every show, I feel like at this point, talking about a new deal that isn't in the MLB, and there is a new deal that isn't in the MLB again today. Rob Manfred has quickly rejected the Union's 70-game plan. It just looks like they're a car just spinning in mud or ice or whatever, and it's going nowhere. And eventually the snowstorm's going to come and just bury the car, and they're done. How long do you give the MLB before things just become a realization it's not going to happen?
If you get to, I think, by the end of July, and they're still, I think you get to July and there's still not a plan set, there's going to be major issues because that plan is going to take a month, I think, with logistics and stuff. Look at the NBA. Their plan was unrolled, early June, and they're not even starting until July 31st. I think the MLB is going to have a plan by July, and they don't have time to implement the real strategy there. They're going to wind themselves up. They're going to end up having a bigger failure down the road with the actual, pulling off the season that they want to if they don't get a plan going soon. And I think the biggest disappointment, Austin, is when you look at the dialogue, how public it is and how publicly disappointed players are with the commissioner, how publicly disappointed players are with owners. This is kind of a sad thing to see because I look at the NBA, and I truly do believe Adam Silver is, I think, the best commissioner in sport right now. I think he's a player's commissioner. I think he moves with the direction of the league. He doesn't force any of his own opinions or persona and to any discussion whatsoever. He tries to make it about the players and the coaches and the owners, and he does it in that order. I think what you're seeing with the MLB is you're seeing just such a focus on money. And if I'm looking at it, I really don't think Rob Manfred's going to be that disappointed if a season doesn't partake. And I think that's the hardest thing to see. I think fans are disappointed with that. I think players are extremely disappointed with that. And I don't really see, as a commissioner of a league, how you can sit back there and tell the players like, oh, we're working very hard to get this going, and then throw on the table what you have. It's been the same deal over and over again, and it's still not, the players have made it clear, it's not what we're looking for. So just put the deal on the table that will work and run with it, because frankly, you're running out of time, and the less time you have, the more money you're going to have to be spending in July and August and September to get any baseball going.
And Dr. Fauci said on Wednesday, the MLB needs to be done by September if it wants to avoid the potential second wave of the coronavirus. And at this point, there's just who knows if they'll even be started by then. But the real question that I think about with the MLB, and Mike Greenberg put this out on, I think it was Instagram. It was like ESPN posted a collage of tweets from all the players that were saying, tell us when and where, tell us when and where, tell us when and where. And Greenberg responded on Instagram and said, I get the frustration, but this is a two-way street. Do you think the players are at fault here at least a little bit, or is this all on the owners?
I think everyone's at fault. I think, you can't, an argument always partakes in two ways. There's always two streets, and everyone's going to have to give but at the same time, I think the players have made it very clear, here's our line. You can go as close to it as you want. Just don't cross it, and it will be good. And the problem is the MLB just keeps trying to cross that line. And the players are just standing, and good for them, honestly, for standing their ground and saying, we're not going to take less, because once you give an inch, you give a mile. So they're standing their ground. I love that. But at the same time, there is a little two-way there. Greenberg's right. Be willing to talk about that. Okay, no, we're not going to do that, but instead let's do this, rather than just saying no outright. I think that's also on the Players Association, that they need to be able to stand up and do that. But the bottom line is time. How are you going to fit a 70-game schedule here in this short a period of time with a playoff stretch? How are you going to manage games with fans? How are you going to have fans at games? There are so many questions in this pandemic right now that we don't have answers to. And I think we're just trying to do what makes everyone else happy. And the simple truth is, in a pandemic, you can't make everyone happy, especially sports fans right now. And it's a bummer. In an ideal world, we'll just put a giant bubble and put everyone that's not having coronavirus there and let sports go on there. But that's not ideal, and it's not in the cards. I think the biggest thing for the sports world right now is, logistically, is this possible for us to resume play without fans at a reasonable low-risk environment? And if the answer to that is no, you don't have an option to even resume with fans. I think that's the confusing part, is everyone's like, well, when can fans come back at games? That shouldn't be the concern right now for these leagues. The league should be thinking, how can we get back to playing at the lowest risk possible? And the simple truth is, even if there's a risk for a 65 and older year-old manager, there's something that needs to be taken accounted for before you can start thinking about, well, how many fans can we get in the stands? That's kind of been my biggest frustration. Is the worry should not be about fans right now. The worry should be about, how can we keep playing in quarantine without risking the second wave that's coming, and continue to play the sport and give fans what they want.
Well, that's kind of been the thing with college football. Is I think Purdue has said that they plan on going about 50% capacity for football games. I don't know how you can make that statement in the middle of June, watching these cases spike all over the country. It's a very interesting thing. The newest school to have a bunch of positive tests is the Texas Longhorns. I believe they had 13 positive tests on the Texas football team. But my stance is this: did you really expect all, what is it, 70 some players on a football team? I don't even know how many are on a football team, but for all of them to come back and just beautifully, none of them have it, no one be asymptomatic? No. You kind of expect, if you're bringing that big of a group in, with how crazy this virus has been and how asymptomatic it can be, you would expect a few of the players to probably test positive. And that's kind of happened. It happened in Alabama. It happened at Houston. It happened to Texas. It'll happen in more places. But if these schools have the proper quarantine measures, that once these players are tested for and they test positive, if you can isolate them for the proper amount of time, keep them away, get them healthy before they come back, this is the demographic, college football athletes, that can handle this and will be fine, as long as they don't have pre-existing conditions. So this isn't something, in my opinion, that is something we shouldn't have expected. But if the schools don't have a proper protocol, then it will start to be an issue. But I think right now, what do you think? I think it's something that we should have expected, right?
I think you're looking at a situation right now where you're kind of thinking, okay, what's the best case scenario here? I think the best case scenario is you can get players in a quarantine environment where they have zero access to anybody else, which, good luck signing a 19-year-old kid to say, hey, you can't have a social life outside of football, or school. That's it. Good luck with that. So I think the player thing, I think players are going to put themselves at risk. I based on what I'm seeing on social media, I think players are more than happy to do so just to get back out there on the field. I think they're dying to get out there. I think they're dying to play football games. I think players or go to Wisconsin with 50% or less fans in Camp Randall. I think they're really excited for that. But I think the big thing is, when you look at that fans thing, you see Purdue going 50%. I think the 50% is good, but you need to require masks. I saw a graphic today that said, when two people are wearing a mask, if one is contagious and does not know he has it, the rate of contagion, whatever it is 1.5%. However, if the two are not using masks, both people, the healthy and unhealthy, it's 70%. So, I think the big thing is masks are going to be required, because you think about going to a sporting event, even if there's only 50%.
They're all just going to right at the front.
Not only that, think about when you go to a sporting event, how often do you yell? Think about the bathrooms. Think about all that stuff. I mean, you're yelling out,
no yelling. There will be no yelling at sporting events from now on. It's not allowed.
Your spit is, and like there's no fans there. So you're going to be yelling even 6 rows ahead of you and to the next guy's shoulder. I mean, it is going to be like, if you're IU football, what are you going to say? Like, hey, kids, but because we're 50%, we're going to reduce your season ticket package by seats. You're going to get 2. Also, if you're 65 or older, sorry, you can't come. Like, I just don't see how that's going to work. And I don't think, there was a major town hall meeting last night where people were calling others un-American for not wanting fireworks on the 4th of July because of the fear it will draw crowds.
We live in a crazy time right now, Griffin. I think that's the overall take. We are waiting on our guest for today. Will Sheehey will be joining us today. The former Indiana basketball player, now playing overseas. He is going to join us here hopefully shortly. We'll just kind of keep tossing out a few headlines here before we get Will to join the chat. The Premier League is back. I don't know if you're a soccer guy, Griffin. I don't think you are, but the Premier League is back. So that's certainly something that people are excited about. What were you going to say?
I just said nice. Very exciting.
You're stoked, I'm sure. With today being Juneteenth, there's a lot of movements around the country in terms of renaming buildings, changing things about schools. The Twins have removed a statue of their ex-owner over racist comments. The SEC is now warning Mississippi that no championship events will happen in the state until there is a new flag. So, and it sounds like, I mean, you saw some of the new coaches. I saw Mike Leach last night, a couple of the basketball coaches for the 2 big schools in Mississippi coming out and supporting this movement, saying that there needs to be a new flag. So that'll be interesting to see if Mississippi comes up with a new flag. I mean, another movement in college sports, they're doing the I don't remember the catchy name that they have for it, but they're giving the players election day off. There will be no practices. That's something that's really starting to gain some traction around the country. Your thoughts? I think it's a good move. I think it's a smart move by the NCAA. What do you think about that?
I think overall, I think we're living in a time where it's pretty exciting right now because change is happening, and it's happening right in front of our eyes. And I think people are starting to listen. And I don't think it's, I don't think it was, the George Floyd that did it. I think it was the post George Floyd that did that. And it's sad that something like George Floyd has to happen for people to wake up. I think the big thing that I've been seeing on social media, the big thing that keeps resonating is it's just not enough to not be racist. It's not. It's no different than, being a bystander to watching a kid in high school get bullied. It's not enough to just like sit there and say nothing on the side. You have to stand up and admit and stand up and say that's not okay. And I think you're seeing that happen now. You're seeing people stand up and say, this is not okay. This has never been okay. And the fact that we're living in 2020 and this is still an issue is disgusting. And, it is kind of nice seeing that finally take shape. Do we have a long way to go? Absolutely. We have a huge way to go. But at the end of the day, I go back to one thing and one thing only. And it's, I think Tom Allen says it best, LEO, right? Love each other. But the simple truth is, I believe we have one calling in this world, and that's to love. And I think it's the easiest task there is. difficult. We make it too hard. And I don't know why we do that. But I think at the same time, we spend more time finding differences in each other than we find similarities. And we stop trying looking for similarities. We try to have these discussions and we try to see, well, you're different from me here, so I'm not gonna like you. You know, that's not what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to find where we're common. We're supposed to find common ground, and we're supposed to find love in that. And I think these protests, as ugly as some of them have been, and some of them truly have been gruesome, you've also seen a lot of good come out of them. You've seen, you know, police officers hugging protesters. You've seen, I think it was in Flint, Michigan, the sheriff coming out, you know, we're going to do this peacefully. We're going to do this right, but we're standing with you. We're going to march with you, and having police march with the protesters. That's the message we're trying to, you know, we should be trying to send is this is unity. You know, we're going to build equality through unity. And I think when you do that, amazing. I do see a lot of love coming out of it more than hate. And I think, you know, even the fact we're having a discussion about Mississippi's flag, renaming buildings is progress. I can't tell you how excited I am about the Bill Garrett renaming at IU. It's been a long time coming. You hear, it's truly inspiring. Growing up in that time, you know, discrimination, coming to a university like Indiana, breaking the Big Ten color barrier. I mean, that was revolutionary. And it's crazy that we didn't think about that before. But, you know, having that building he played in, the Hyper, I believe he played there. I'm not sure if I'm not 100%, but still pretty cool to have his name on it and see that change. So.
Yeah, it's really good to see the change in our country. Still waiting on our guest here for today. Will Sheehey will hopefully be joining us here shortly. Waiting on him here on our Zoom call. Griffin Gonzalez with Austin Render here on Unpaid Interns, Friday, June 19th. We'll take the time to thank all of our guests so far this week. We've had some really great guests. Scott Powers came on, talked NHL and Chicago Blackhawks. Chris Solomon came on, talked the PGA Tour. That was on Monday. And then on Wednesday, it was a great episode with Wednesday. Oh, I'm even blanking on our episodes. We've had too many of them. Zach Osterman and Matt Dollinger joined us on Wednesday to talk NBA, to talk Indiana football, Indiana basketball. Remember, you can catch all of our episodes anywhere you get podcasts, Breaker Podcasts, Spotify Podcasts, anywhere that you listen to your podcast, you can find us. You can also find all of our videos if you want to see the guests in person, you want to see their faces, you want to see Griffin's beautiful face. You can see them on YouTube, on the IU Sports Media YouTube page. All of our videos are on there as well. Next week, we'll be back Monday, Wednesday, Friday with our typical shows, but we're still just kind of waiting around here, Griffin. What are some of the things that stand out to you in the sports world that maybe we haven't talked about yet?
I think one interesting thing, Render, is if you're looking at the NBA, I don't know if you saw this yesterday. They're making players wear these Aura rings. I'm not sure what they're called, but they're rings with like microchips in them. They track your heart rate, they track your temperature, they track your blood flow. I don't know, but lots of science.
So it's like a mood ring.
Yeah, and basically 90% success rate at detecting coronavirus 3 days before symptoms. So I think that will be very interesting to see. Probably should let some of the general public in on that. But we get it. We're going to test it with the NBA and see how it goes. The NBA, I will say that situation is looking something almost out of a movie. I mean, or a reality TV show. I mean, it truly is the way they're doing it, the rules, tell assignments, we're going to have a 2K room. We're going to have, a rec room. We're going to have DJ sets.
No doubles ping pong.
No doubles. I was very disappointed to see it. Which, first of all, how did 2 6'6" guys play doubles ping pong?
I don't know how that works.
I'm just imagining the wingspan. Imagine playing with Giannis and Dwight Howard and just trying to play back and forth ping pong. I think the anonymous tip line where players can call if somebody's breaking protocol is absolutely hilarious. I think you're going to get a lot of great stuff out of that. I do think it's fascinating to me. I think it's interesting, and I think it will be cool to see how it plays out. I think there's a mini reality TV series that you could have on what this is going to look like. I would love a behind the scenes look, and I hope the NBA capitalizes on that content. But I mean, it's going to be interesting. I think it will be an interesting perspective as far as it will be like an AAU tournament with the best players in the world. And I think that's going to be kind of fun to watch. And I think my favorite part about it is, though, NBA players can attend games that they're not playing in. So Joel Embiid can go to a Pacers Celtics game and sit courtside and just talk, say whatever he wants courtside because it's Joel, and he will. So I'm pretty excited to see it. I miss basketball more than anything. And I mean, I'm craving some NBA action. So when that starts up, I'll be really excited. I love the idea of it. Like I said earlier, I think Adam Silver's a genius for it. So we'll see.
Yeah, the biggest issue is what players won't go. And obviously there's a big group, or not a big group, but it's a growing group of players that are saying they won't go. The latest, a little bit closer to home, Justin Holiday of the Pacers said he's leaning toward not going. So there will be a group of players that decide they do not want to go, and that they will continue to stay home and fight the racial injustice at home and use a different platform. Nobody's wrong. Nobody's out of line in this scenario, Griffin, but does this feel like it might hurt the NBA?
I think it. I think I think social justice movements are important, but I think they only work if everyone's in agreement. And I don't think you've seen a LeBron or a Giannis or, for lack of a better term, guys who actually want to come back really bad because they're contending. You haven't seen any of them stand up for this. And we know LeBron is no stranger to social justice. LeBron is very vocal in that, and many love LeBron because of that. However, that being said, that shouldn't diminish what Kyrie is trying to do. But at the same time, I think you want to use sports to amplify that, not turn away from sports. Use that voice. And I think doing something when, let's be honest, the TV ratings are going to be at an all-time high. Making your voice heard there, I think, would be more impactful showing up. And I understand. And I understand that you want to make a statement. And by doing that, you are significantly making a statement. But by doing that, you're punishing, not just racists. You're punishing your fans. You're punishing, teams who are other NBA players just like you. So I don't think that would send the right message. I see what, but I do think there's a need for action, and I think you do need to make a statement. But I think the fact that all NBA players haven't come and surrounded that idea shows you that it's not the right idea. I think there is an idea there, and I'm pretty sure they're planning something. But I think you need full support of the LeBron, all that, to really get something going. And right now, that's not there.
Yeah, the NBA, it feels a little bit murkier than it did about 2 weeks ago. And when the deal came out, everything seemed like, oh, this is going to be great. They're coming back to Orlando. And now it's like, maybe they're not coming back. So we're still holding out hope that Will Sheehey will come join us. I know that Griffin said that he liked his text message this morning. So come on, Will. We're waiting on you, bud. But hopefully Will Sheehey will join us here shortly. We'll edit this a little bit cleaner for the podcast version. Speaking of the devil, he has just joined us here, just about connecting to audio with us here in the Unpaid Interns, Friday, June 19th. And we'll bring in our first guest. It is a member of the Indiana Hoosiers from 2010 to 2014, Will Sheehey, joining us. Will, how are you?
What's going on? Sorry, I'm a little late, boys. The water was out of my apartment, so I had to just get it turned back on.
Well, that is a very valid reason for that. What have you been up to? I mean, everybody's got a different path right now in this quarantine, but what have you been doing here the past couple months?
Yeah, my wife and I live here in New York City, so, we've been bunkered down for the most part, but, trying to see the positives, do the best we can, just making it through, What about you guys?
Griff?
We're just doing shows like this, Will. We're used to having our studio, but no studio, so we're just playing here on Zoom, I guess. Will, I guess tell us and our listeners right now, where are you at now? Is the playing career, is that done, or are we moving on to other things, or are we still doing the world of basketball?
Yeah, playing career is finished. Had some season-ending injuries, and then they ended up being career-ending. But yeah, man, I'm a little feisty guy, so I used to dive on loose balls, take some elbows, whatnot. You can't do that forever. Just like your brother, Griff. He was just his playing career just got cut short. He's too scrappy.
He likes to pretend it's not cut short, but he still likes getting out there. Will, I guess a lot of fans had a lot of fun watching you, and me and got the opportunity to play a team that won 12 games in the season, to 3 years later playing on a team that was number one in the country for a majority of the year. I want to hear from you about those years, kind of where you came from, watching that program grow. What was that like for you as a player, watching these guys develop and seeing you guys become one of the best teams in the country almost overnight?
Yeah, I remember coming on my recruiting visit, actually, and the team was terrible, like just not good. You could tell that they didn't have much talent. But one of the big reasons why I decided to come to IU was they were doing like a box out drill, like offense versus defense, got to get the ball. And your brother was boxing out Matt Roth, and Matt Roth just goes right around him, gets the rebound, and Cream blows the whistle. And, when you're in high school, it's like, oh, do it again, like it's all good. We'll get it next time. Cream blows the whistle and is like, just chews out your brother. Is like, that's not a box out. That was the weakest box out I've ever seen, blah, blah, blah. Next time around, Daniel just absolutely just tackles him to the ground. Just not even a box out. Just like WWE, just puts him down. And Crean's like, you know what? Like, that's not technique, but I like it. And I remember being like, I'm down with this. Like, this looks like they're getting after it. Like, it's fun, So, yeah, like going through that, I just knew that I wanted to be a part of just like a scrappy program where like you had to build it. That's the kind of offers I was getting out of high school. Wasn't that great of a player. So, I had to kind of just find my niche that way. But man, being part of the team and watching it grow from the guys like Tom and your brother, who helped me when I first got there, to the next. And then finally, once Cody got in there, everything kind of clicked because he just opened up the court for everyone. He was such a good player, and it just helped Vic's game grow with having more space, more openness. And then Cody could feed off of us because we were a bunch of outside players. So I think it was just like the perfect storm.
Well, let's talk about that Big Ten championship season, your number one team in the country for a while. You mentioned some of the players on that team, but just like, I want to know, take us through some of the atmospheres, the home game against Michigan, the home game against Ohio State the year before, the Kentucky game, obviously, but what was Assembly Hall like in those 2 years where you guys got to the top level of college basketball?
Yeah, the good part about Assembly Hall is that, like, even when the teams are bad, the crowd's good. So when I first got there, the crowd kind of was like, hey, we gotta support the team regardless of how good or bad they are. And you could kind of see the momentum building with the crowd the same way as our team was like more games, more wins in a row. All of a sudden the crowd started to get a little bit more into it. Then all of a sudden game day comes, and it's just like, again, like that perfect storm of just the momentum of the team, the momentum of the crowd, of the town, everything kind of getting behind the team. And I think the town was just like ready, maybe even the state. I mean, I know like, obviously there's other great teams in the state as well, but the state was just like ready for the IU team to be back on the national stage. And it was just, people were just boiling over and they're just ready to support a good team. So I think it was great for both sides.
I feel like a lot of, go ahead, Griff.
You see some of your teammates. You see Cody on the NBA in Charlotte. You see Vic in Indiana doing his thing. I guess my question here is more surrounded around Victor. Vic was a 2-3-star recruit coming out of high school, comes to Indiana, was okay. I think first and just to be an athletic monster. Were you surprised to see the jump he made in the NBA just over those first few years of his career, or did you see this from day one?
Yeah, Griff, it's interesting that you bring me on the show. You wear a USA men's soccer uniform. We're talking basketball. Then you bring me on the show to talk about Vic. So I really love where you're bringing the heat from today. No, but Vic was always a great player. But the most important thing was he always had a great work ethic. So from day one, he always would say, like, I might not be the best shooter. I might not be the best ball handler, but he was going to get there. And we had great guys like Corey Barnett, Seth Cooper, guys that were always in the lab with him, always willing to work with him throughout the whole night, early morning, whatever it was, before practice, after practice. And really, it was almost just like it was bound to happen. Some guys are just like really, really dedicated players like Jordan and Vic. Unfortunately, Jordan is 6 foot, white, unathletic. But when you have the physical attributes like Vic does with the work ethic, good things will happen. So I think Vic deserves all the praise and all of the recognition that he gets. Did I think he would be an NBA All-Star? Honestly, no. But hard work, dedication gets you anywhere.
Is he truly as good of a singer or at least in college, was he as good of a singer as he is now? What were his singing skills like, and how often did he pull them out?
I think when someone is so good at one thing, like basketball, when they are just okay at singing, it makes it look like they're a fantastic singer, right? So, like, I'm a decent basketball player, so all of a sudden, like, if I can do any other thing that is remotely cool, I'm automatically better at it. But yeah, Vic's an okay singer. Yeah, I mean, he's a better basketball player, of course. But I have heard him. I was his roommate in college freshman year. He would leave our dorm room open and just sing as loud as he could down the hallways. And, I can't lie. Like, people liked it.
Well, let me ask this. Most people are familiar with the NBA game. You had some time overseas, and a lot of people aren't familiar with what that looks like. From a college player going overseas. Talk about that transition. How we see basketball over here? How is it different? And what's that process like as a player moving to a country you might have never been to before and kind of tackling the head on?
Yeah, so like the NBA game that you see is so the main difference between the two that I don't think a lot of people understand, even in college, the NBA, is the defense of 3 seconds. So you have the paint, when you're in high school, the coaches are like the paint, the blocked off area underneath the basket. So when you're in the NBA, you cannot stay in there on defense for over 3 seconds. So if you're in help side defense, you have to get out of the paint. So that automatically opens up the game a lot more. You have a lot more dunks. You have a lot more alley-oops. You have a lot more things because the help defense is at a disadvantage. So in the college and in Europe, a lot of people are like, it's harder to score. Not necessarily true, but the rules are in favor of scoring in the NBA. Obviously, the athletes and the players are much better. But that's kind of why you see lower scoring games in college and in the NBA and in Europe. It's just because of the rule difference. But yeah, just going over there, the game is a little different. It's more college style, half court sets, still 24-second shot clock, a lot more tactical, a lot of not in the NBA, you just kind of run like a high ball screen, pick and roll, whatever at the top of the key, and then kind of play out of that. Where, a lot of times coaches in Europe want to like run more like off the ball screens and pin down staggers kind of thing. So the game is just a little bit more tactical. I'd probably say like if you're a huge college basketball fan and you don't like the NBA, go give European basketball a shot, watch it, see if you like it. And I think it's more similar.
Let's go back to IU for a second. A lot of people have questions about Tom Crean. What was the guy like behind the scenes? He was always so energetic on the court, pacing back and forth. What was your relationship like with Tom, and what is he like? Is he still that energetic and that into everything he does, even behind the scenes?
Yeah, 100%. Like he's all in. So that was one of the things why I wanted to go to IU in general, was just like, every time he called me, every time during the recruiting process, it was like, this is how I can get you better. And he would send me clips and articles and all these things that was just like funneling just like my mindset of just like how to become a better player, how to make IU better. So like, I think Tom Crean was the perfect coach for IU at that time, because he was just so dedicated to bringing the program back, doing everything that he could. He's all in all the time, very intense guy. So like for me, like those kind of coaches are good because they challenge me. I won't say that that's the best for every player, but I think guys like Vic, guys like myself, like guys that like to be challenged on a daily, it works. But yeah, he's an intense dude. Yeah, man.
What do you remember outside of basketball from Bloomington? What were some of the highlights of the campus, the restaurants, the food, all that stuff? What do you remember about Bloomington?
Are you guys 21 yet? Can I even talk about like beers and stuff on this?
Yeah, you
podcast?
can. Yeah.
All right. Is this family friendly? I don't want to get
I mean, don't go too crazy, but you're allowed to talk about bars and nightlife and stuff like that.
Okay, talk about bars. Just want to make sure I'm not getting you guys kicked out of your class.
No, you're good.
Yeah, man, Bloomington is awesome. Like it's the perfect storm of students, townies, professors, kids. Like it's great. It's its own little like world in Bloomington. There's no place like it. I enjoyed everything about being there. Some of the restaurants and bars I just love to go to is like number one, the Vid. If you guys have never been there before, it's like the Video Saloon bar underneath. I think it's called the Cave now. That wasn't there before. But a lot of pool tables, dart tables, great drinks, strong beers for cheap. So that's the good stuff, right? Yeah, I never really like. I would go to Kilroy's and stuff, but not too often. It was always too packed. Dunkirk, great spot. No longer, unfortunately. But yeah, a lot of craft breweries now. I'm a big beer guy, so it's nice to see that. Upland's sweet. The Big Woods, I guess, Quaffon, awesome spot. So yeah, Jordan Holes is doing like a full like around the town thing where he like he's taking pictures and promoting small businesses during COVID. So it's awesome. I'll have you guys get him on the show so he can give you the full lowdown of all the Bloomington business.
Absolutely. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Your go-to food spot in Bloomington? I'm curious.
Go-to food. Okay. So breakfast, I'd have to say would be either Runcible Spoon or Bloomington Bagel. Those spots are pretty fire. Lunch right after practice, I would say most of us, Buffalo's was tough to beat. The wings there are really, really good. I mean, I've lived all over the world, and the wings there bring me back. So, Ed's a good dude. He runs a spot there. Let me think. I think that's probably like, Upland's got good food too. But as a college kid, you're looking for the deals, right? So, man, it's a good spot. I mean, Chick-fil-A is the GOAT. If anyone wants to argue with me with that, they're crazy. So I'd probably say I ate a lot of Chick-fil-A.
There you go.
There's nothing wrong with that take whatsoever. What do you remember about the Michigan game on the road? The ball that sits on the rim from Jordan Morgan. Kind of take it, if you remember that. I'm sure you probably do. Take us through that moment and kind of what that 5-10 seconds was like.
Yeah, so I was having like a fire game, so I was hyped. Hit a couple threes, had a couple dunks, felt good about myself. Crean pulls me out at the end for offense, for defense. He used to sub Jordan in for offense and me in for defense towards the end of the games. Used to really, really piss me off, and Jordan as well. So it was like this weird dynamic where Jordan and I would like act like we like slapping each other's hands when we came off the court, but he was like, "Shit, my defense sucks," and I'm like, "God, I suck at offense," and like we would go back and forth like that. So to be honest with you, I was probably, I don't even remember if I was on the court or not because it was so like in and out during that time, but. yeah, I mean, the ball sat up there forever. Like, I just remember them missing free throws down the stretch. Cody making huge plays, like 3 in a row, tip-ins, like and ones. And he's such a good free throw shooter too. That was probably like one of the most underrated things about his game was his free throw, like his shooting touch. So like you could have him in at the end of the game, and it was like almost an advantage. Like, go ahead and foul the guy if you want. Where a lot of other big mans, they would give up like rebounding opportunities. They wouldn't be a rim presence because they'd be out on the bench because they're a bad free throw shooter. So towards the ends of games, I think that's also why during those years we were so good at the end of games. It's because we could leave Cody in for rebounding, shot blocking, but then he could also shoot a free throw, which a lot of fans don't really understand. They're like, that's a huge part at the end of the game. A lot of teams sub out their big guys, and then the court is just so much more open toward the rim. You can get to the rim and kind of finish where if you go and you see a big guy, you're like, oh, do I shoot this? Do I not? So I think that was big. But yeah, man, really fun after the game, partied it up in the locker room in Michigan. Nothing like winning on someone else's court and having a party in our locker room.
Well, I'm going to put you on the spot here. We do this thing on Fridays called Top 5 Fridays, where we usually come up with some sort of ranking system. So I'm going to put you on the spot. What are 5 games, your top 5 games that stand out to you from your IU career?
Okay, all the ones that I played well in. Scored 30 against Iowa at home my senior year. Hit the game-winning shot against VCU. Obviously, Kentucky game at home. I'm trying to go quick for you. Let's see, 2 more that was fun. My first ever game, I scored a point in Florida Gulf Coast my freshman year. No one in the stands. It was fun. And then the last one I'd probably say would be, winning on the road is sweet. So I would say, one of those road wins, probably at Michigan, or it's tough to get even. I don't even remember because it's so tough to get some. But it was always fun. You win those games. You have fun in the locker room. The plane ride home is just fun. No one's like, looking at each other funny. So I'd say those are my top 5.
Well, what about that VCU game? I mean, was that the play call? Kind of walk us through what was supposed to happen there, if that was exactly how it went. I know sometimes those plays don't go to plan, but what was the plan there, and what was it like hitting that shot?
Yeah, time and score is actually like not a great shot from Vic or from me, to be honest. We were coming down. It was kind of like a 2-on-1, 3-on-2 kind of thing. And Vic goes to the rim, and I'm kind of funneling in behind him. And I'm probably yelling like, "Trailer, I'm behind you, like pass it to me." And Vic's like, "Nah, I'm going to go take it." So he goes in, gets a shot block, and it comes like right to me. And I'm a good 15-foot jump shooter. I get out to 3-point line. Who knows? It's like just throwing it in the ocean. But 15 feet, I'll bet on myself. So it came out to me. It's like, another thing you want is when a rebounder or someone's rebounding for you, like when practice, they're always underneath the basket, throwing it like straight to your chest, like a straight line drive. And so when those kind of happen in the game, it's why everyone talks about like, oh, a 3-point shot is great after an offensive rebound, because the ball's coming from the rim out to you and you're catching it like naturally the way that you practice. Where like if you catch it from the side and you like bring it in, it's like a less natural shot. So the ball just like trickles right to me. It's just like practice. I'm like, screw it. I'm shooting it. I'm open. Goes in. We're up, I think 1, maybe 2. I don't exactly remember. But I just remember it was like tied or we were down, and we go up, and then they come down with another 10 seconds. Gets a wide open look on the other end. Huge communication like mishap. But he misses and we win.
Well, oh yeah, go ahead, Griff. I'm stealing the spotlight here.
I guess I'm just curious. You spend your time at Indiana. You have a great few years. Senior year team kind of goes down a little bit. And one thing I remember in particular is your senior year in the senior night might have been the shortest senior year speech on record at Indiana. I'm just curious. Why'd you go the short route? And is there any reason behind it? I'm curious.
Yeah, well, my senior year sucked because I'm just like not that good of a basketball player, and I think everyone expected me to like score 20 points a game, and it's just like wasn't gonna happen. I always scored like 10 points a game my whole career, and all of a sudden they're like, "Oh, well, Will's a senior now, so he's gonna score 30, and they're gonna win a bunch of games." It's like, okay, so yeah, I mean, I did the best I could. Like, should I have maybe partied a little less? Yeah, probably. In hindsight's 2020, right? So yeah, I mean, I remember we had a senior night game. and we lost, and I was like pissed. And I was like, this is awful. Like the worst way you want to go out is like a bad season in general, and then to lose on senior night, it just makes you just look like a loser, you know? And so I'm like, what's the point of me like talking about all positive good things right now? It's just like it's ruined. Like the night's ruined. Let's just get out of here. So that's kind of where I was at. I was like, I just want to leave. Like I want this to be over. And so I just try to make it short and sweet for everybody, just to get the hell out of there.
This might be digging up an old wound, but I've grown up an IU fan, so I'm curious to hear your insight on this. The Illinois game, the year you guys were number one, and the wide open layup. What happened? Was that just a pure miscommunication? What happened there?
Yeah, so one thing I'll say is, like, you say you're an IU fan. All I can see behind you is Purdue, Iowa, Penn State, Michigan State.
It's right behind my head. It's very poorly.
You conveniently block it off during interviews. Okay. So what happened was, which is a smart play by the other team's coach. I think they drew it up this way. So a lot of times at the end of games, teams will screen a lot, right? So they'll run an out of bounds play. I'll go set a pick for you. You go set a pick for this guy, blah, blah, blah. Well, most of the times, every team knows that everyone's just going to switch all of it. So if it's a point guard screening a center screening a point guard, whatever, a lot of times you just put your biggest lineup in toward like that time end of the game. So like Jordan Halls is out, like I'm in, offense, defense, there you go. So then we sub out, everyone's about the same height, and the other team's coach knows, hey, they're probably going to switch everything. So very smart on his end. He ran two guys that looked like they were going to screen each other, but they just ran by each other. So there's actually no screen. They just kind of like two trains passing in the night, right? So they just like went by each other. And I don't remember who exactly it was. I know Seawat was in there because I remember giving him a lot of shit for it afterwards. Seawat and someone else, probably Vic, because he was a crazy man. They thought that they were switching, and one guy switched and the other guy didn't. So then there was two guys on one guy and no one on the guy under the basket, and he went right in and laid it in.
Well, there you go. You heard it here first, folks.
Yeah, it was Vic and Seawat, okay? It wasn't me. It was probably me.
Well, I got to ask mainly because I know the story, so I want you to tell it. Last time I went to Bloomington, I heard there was an incident surrounding your ID and Kilroy's.
Wow.
My wife's laughing. I don't know. Okay. Yeah. I know what you're talking about. How'd you know that?
Tell the story and I'll tell you how I know. Go ahead.
All right. Okay. So
put them on the spot.
I go to Kilroy's and I'm like, it's the summertime. There's no one in town. I'm doing some rehab and working out there last summer, trying to get my body right. So I should definitely be going to Kilroy's, right? Like that's like the natural thing to do to feel better and refreshed. So I give my ID to the bouncer, and he's a college kid. I'm not going to say he was being nice. Definitely wasn't. And he's like, hey, this is a Florida ID. We see a lot of Florida fakes. I'm like, dude, I'm 28 years old. Like, I'm not trying to fake my ID in here, And he's like, we see a lot of Florida fakes because I'm from Florida, so I got Florida ID. He like holds it up to the light, brings it back down, and he's like, I'm going to bend it a little bit because a lot of them are like really flimsy. I'm like, okay. So the guy just straight up bends it and snaps it in half, completely snaps it in half. It's broken. And then he hands it back to me. I'm like, dude, it's broken. Like, well, you're going to have to pay me for a new ID, like, or at least give me like a drink credit for $20 or whatever my ID's worth. He's like, actually, bro, you can take it or leave it. And I didn't like that. So I was like, actually, no, I'm not going to do that. And so we went back and forth for a while. And then I was like, I'm out of here. So that's pretty much what happened.
So the reason I know that story is because my roommate at IU was the bouncer that night who been –
I kid's at church.
He comes in, he's like, dude, do you know this guy, Will Sheehey? And I was like, how do you not know Will Sheehey? And he's he's like, well, I bit and broke his ID, and apparently he was a basketball player. He was pissed. And I was like, yeah, because he's 28 years old. He was probably pissed. You're trying to see if he has a fake ID. But he came in home and told me that story. I immediately called Daniel and told him that one. And he's like, yeah, Will called last night and said he was pissed.
Yeah, the thing is, like, I was pissed that he broke my ID, sure. But I was more pissed that he was like, I don't care that I broke your ID. Like, we're Kilroy, so if you want to come in, great, and if you don't, you can take a hike. I'm like, hey man, you just broke my ID. Like, at least say sorry. And he was like, no, not apologizing. We get a lot of Florida fakes in here. Beat it, kid.
Well, next time you're in Bloomington, I'll make sure he gets you. He'll take care of you next time. I'll make sure he does that. Okay.
Love that. Love that.
But Will, before we wrap this up, I want to ask you this. You know, talk about certain moments. I guess big picture here. When you look at your time at Indiana, when you look at your basketball career overall, what's the big takeaway you want to share with Indiana fans, students, former players, current players, anyone that's listening about you?
Yeah, I would say, like, as a player, you don't remember the games, right? Like, you want to say that you do, but you don't. You don't remember how many points you scored unless you're me. You don't remember, that much stuff. You remember your friends. You remember, the great nights that you had. You remember the people like you, Griff, that you meet along the way, and your family and things like that. So I would say probably everyone, fans, players in general, do the best you can, work hard, give it your all, but don't stress too much. Think about the relationships that you're building. Think about how much fun it is. The fans can get really pissed that you lose, but hey, man, you had a nice day. You went to a game. The team's doing their best that they can out there. So I would say players, fans, everyone, take a deep breath. IU basketball is big. We all love it. We all want the team to go undefeated, but they're going to lose. Players, you're going to lose, but it's not the end of the world. Remember your friends, remember your family. And yeah, man, go for there, because I still have your brother Tom, those guys I met in college that I'm still friends with today, talk to all the time. But I don't talk to, I don't remember the games that we lost and the shots that I missed. I only remember the ones you make.
Well, what's your number one dunk that you think about? Because you were a high flying player. You feel like a guy who would remember most of his big dunks. What's like one that stands out to you?
I love the subtle disc there. They're really nice. Yeah, I had one dunk my freshman year against Iowa, and it kind of like set the bar a little too high for the rest of my career. So
Yeah,
never really had anything quite as good, but it was fun. It was great. And yeah, I had some other ones, but they just didn't top it. So I kind of yeah.
that's the one that I was kind of thinking about when I asked the question. Last question. I promise. Last one. What do you think about where the program is right now with Archie Miller? Do you follow along? Do you watch the team? Where are they at in your mind?
Yeah, I was overseas for a while, so I didn't really get to watch the games because the games start and all of a sudden it's like, 2, 3 in the morning, and I got to go to practice and wake up and got my own games and stuff. So I have not been following that often. But the past and the second half of the season last year, I was in the States. I could see the games, watch them. And now I'm back in the States, so I'm ready for the season to start back up. I know that he's doing a great job recruiting. They've gotten a bunch of great recruits in the state of Indiana, which is important. I know the IU fans love that. So if he can just keep doing his job recruiting and kind of, get the best players he can and get them to stay for more than just 1 year. And it looks like the one kid, the big guy's staying for the next year. So that's good for everybody. And yeah, as long as everyone does the best they can and you win more than you lose, it's a win in my book.
Well, Will, thanks so much for joining us and giving us some of your Friday morning with us. But best of luck to you in whatever's next for you in your career. And we appreciate you giving us some time.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Sorry I was late. I was trying to figure out my water situation. So sorry again, Griff.
No problem at all. Thanks for joining us. Take care, Will.
All right. See you, boys.
That was Will Sheehey, former Indiana Hoosier. Thanks to Griffin for bringing Will on the show here with us. I think that guy has some stories. We kind of got a few of them there in the half an hour we had him, but just a great guy, a great storyteller, loves Indiana basketball, and that was a blast to have him on.
He's such a character. I think he's got a world of stories, some on the court even, but lots off of the court in Bloomington. But man, he's got a huge heart. He's an awesome guy. Loved his time at Indiana, and he's an awesome dude. Yeah.
I hope I asked enough questions for those out there that are diehard Hoosiers that wanted to know some of that stuff. So I was representing my family and all those who want to ask questions to Will Sheehey. But
wanted an explanation for the Illinois game. It sounded you were still a little bitter there.
No, I just wanted to know what happened. I've always wondered what happened there, and that is an explanation I had never heard before, how Illinois just kind of faked them out. And who would have thought Vic, probably the best defensive player on that team with Will, those two, and Vic got scrambled up. But great stuff there from Will Sheehey. Thank you for those of you who are watching live, who bared with us there as Will figured out his water situation at home. But a really good podcast, a really good week of guests. Griffin, thanks for hopping on here on a Friday morning, and we'll get you back on next week, hopefully. And now that you're in that you got a beautiful setup there behind you.
My boat behind, yeah.
Yeah,
I might take that out today.
Yeah. Oh yeah, you going sailing?
Yeah, just gonna take that one out there back. Hopefully I can fit on it. But,
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for joining us. For Will and Griffin, I'm Austin. Again, you can catch all our podcasts on Spreaker Podcast, Spotify Podcast, and Apple Podcasts, as well as our video feed on the IU Sports Media YouTube page. We're back Monday at 11 o'clock. Until then, we'll see you next time on Unpaid Intern.